and the past known attacks and like how those attacks was like mitigated, the kind of thing, and obviously about the fuzzer that I've worked on, and finally the demo of like one of the crashes. Okay, and obviously I won't be like disclosing the details about the crash that has taken place because I work for Tipping Point and I probably want to make money out of it too. So. And yeah, I'll show you the demo too. So SCADA. So how many of you are like familiar with SCADA around here? Wow, beautiful. There's like a lot more people than I expected. So SCADA is defined as supervisory control data acquisition, and that is the acronym for it. And it is defined as the common process of application and collects data from sensors and shop floors or in the remote locations and sends it to the central computer for like the the processing of that particular data. So a typical example would be like in a manufacturing plant or something where like you're like doing some kind of manufacturing and you are having like, say like you're producing like 1,000 computers a day, and say some particular parts is like you just ran out, and so like you have like the first 800 which has been manufactured completely, and like the next 200 which doesn't have that particular part in it, that kind of thing. So you want like those sensors to send out information to your central server, and there you basically say, okay, fine, like stop production right now, that kind of thing. So, and it is like the most vital component of your critical infrastructure. By critical infrastructure, I mean like all your nuclear power plants, your electricity, utilities, the gas, water, all those places, everywhere. I mean, the manufacturing plants are just like the smaller scale of where the SCADA networks is being used right now. So the basic components of the SCADA networks are like you have like the operator, the guy who looks into the computer and thinks like he's cool. And then you have like the human-machine interface, which basically pulls out like the software basically, which pulls out a nice GUI of how the interpretation is there, like of all the data that it collected from the MTUs. What an MTU is basically, it's a master terminal unit, which basically aggregates all the data from all the remote sensors and then pulls it up together, makes an analysis of it, and gives this one. Like the MTU basically does all. If there's any query coming in, like say from any of the RTUs, it just says like, okay, this is the response for it. But there are like some cases where the odd cases where the MTU is not able to make a decision for it. That's when like it comes to the operator to make the call. So one such case is like when like you're manufacturing something and like you don't have like some parts available anymore. So then that's when like you want to like check up with this one, the MTU makes a flag for that kind of thing. Then there's the communication channel. Like right now, the SCADA network goes through all sorts of possible channels, like right from internet to your wireless, cell phone towers, everything. So, and finally, the RTUs, which basically does all this dirty work of collecting the data. Here's a cool little diagram that I drew. Well, as you can see over here, like the robotics is some kind of like manufacturing plants. Those are the RTUs. And then we have like the routers and the PLC. PLCs are nothing but program logic controllers. And those are used to, again, like they can be working as an intermediary MTUs. So again, like this entire SCADA architecture, you don't have to like make it less like one master and slave. It can be like master, and slave. Like, I mean, like the intermediate guy acts as a slave to above the hierarchy, just like your tree hierarchy, that kind of thing. And like initially when like the SCADA networks were all developed, they were all mainly going through like the serial ports and those kind of things, and they were like short distance, that kind of thing. And so it all started that way, like using like RS-232 and those kind of things. And nowadays it's all going through Ethernet, and then like the expected ones is going to be like all through like the wireless and that kind of stuff. So this is like the basic diagram, like how it could possibly look. And obviously like you can attack on like either the HMI itself, where like the entire processing takes place. You can attack the MTU, where like you can force that one to go down too. And you can attack the PLCs or the RTUs, like the sensors itself. You can take control of the sensors itself in order to take an attack. Why do we need security in the SCADA networks? Firstly, I'm like, simple question. When these if I'm not wrong, like, Modbus was like created in like 1970s. So obviously they didn't have security in mind in 1970s when they created these stuff for like communication purposes. And when they did that, and then like now it's still being used by some of the not some, like many of the companies, they still use Modbus protocol. And there was an extension to it called Modbus Plus and the Modbus over Ethernet and those kind of things. But the basics of the protocol, it still remains the same. But they didn't think about adding any of the security features to it. So it's still vulnerable. So like some of your critical infrastructures, like we use DNP3 in like most of the gas and the water industries, and it's still not so secure. They use CRC, but yeah, right, that kind of thing. So it's pretty easy. And like the next thing is like one good example was like the blackout. Which took place in 2003 January. Yeah, 2003 January, and it was basically an overload and that kind of thing. But you could also like say, and there was like the other case where like you had like the nuclear power plant go down for like 5 hours, and like, I'll get back to those examples coming in like the next slides. So that was just one example. Like the blackout happened because of the overload, but there could be like possibly like the government is like probably hiding it from us or something. I don't know, where like somebody attacked into it. It's like very easy. It's not like so very difficult. Yes? Do you have a question? Sorry. No, I thought he had a question. Yeah. So like the blackouts are like that was just one particular thing. Think about the case where like you're company A and company B, and like both of you are producing the same stuff, and like one easy way you want to like take down the company B will be like, yeah, they produce so many stuff during the Christmas time. That's when their sales is really high. Let's take them down on Christmas. That kind of thing. So simple ways. You don't even have to go and hack into like their main servers or anything. Just take down the cooling system of the company and like let all the servers burn down, that kind of thing. So it's like one easy way to like take control of the company and like make them into loss or something, that kind of thing. Not that I'm recommending you guys to do that, but I'm like I'm just like saying that's a simpler way to do it than like try to find real hard vulnerabilities and get into those computers. And then like obviously there's other possibility too, like where like if the sensors are supposedly giving you like some feeds, the values, so say something to determine like the temperature of this particular room, and like this server room. If the temperature is supposed to be maintained at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sensor sends out saying it's 65 degrees Fahrenheit, even though like we have taken control over the sensor, and like that is sending out false information to you, whereas like the real thing is like probably 85 or something, that kind of thing. And the other cool thing about like these protocols is that like not the cool thing, it's a sad thing actually. So you don't need authentication to like talk to the servers. You can just like go and like send in like this is the instruction that I want you to execute as a server, and like the server will just execute it and send it back to you. So that's how weak it is. There's like no check as to like this is the IP address it's coming from. This is the thing. Not even those kind of basic tests. So like you just go and like send in like a data saying, this is my instruction. Why don't you do it? And the server is just going to respond back to you saying, yeah, this is the answer to your query, and like this is the thing, or like, okay, I'm going to go. Like you asked me to shut down, so I'll go shut down, that kind of thing. So that's how simple it is to do it too. So yeah, the attack scenarios will be like basically providing false data, like the way I told you, like in the case like of a temperature sensor or like sensing like the water pollutants. So here's an example like where like you take out the water from the lake or something and process it, and then like sending it out to all the houses all over your particular county or like your state, that kind of thing. So what happens is like if there's a pollutant in the water, it's not supposed to go out, but that has been determined by the sensors inside the water, that kind of thing. So if you can like control over those sensors and say like, well, the water's fine, you can just send it, that kind of thing. It's going to go through, and everybody who's going to drink the water is going to eventually die of fall sick, that kind of thing. So that's one simpler case. And denial of service attack, basically like I told you, like sending out like a reboot instruction to the service, it's like you don't need authentication to do that. So if I keep on sending reboot command to the server continuously, it's going to be like keep on rebooting every time, and like it's not going to be processing any data. So you're like totally taking down the entire network there. And obviously there are like so many protocol anomalies, and like most of the softwares, when I looked into them, it was like pretty sad. The first thing that you see is like they like make the software like to just sell it out as soon as possible. Like they don't even care about like the looks and the feel of the software. Not even the looks. I'm like, they just want to like have something which says, okay, this is the instruction, this is the output, go for it, that kind of thing. Okay, we're done with it. And they don't even comply with any of the RFCs or any of the standards, basically how these softwares are, like how they're supposed to be interacting for this particular protocol, that kind of thing. So that's really, I'm like, every time I look into one software, I'm like, oh God, this is like too simple to do it, that kind of thing. And the previous attacks, there was one particular thing in California itself, the first one, where apparently Al-Qaeda had some connections over here, and this was posted. I just Googled up, and then I found it in Washington Post in June 27, 2002, where they apparently had all the schematics and everything of taking down like the power utility over here. And the second one is like there was this contractor who was working for this Russian thing, right? Yeah, it was an Australian thing. Yeah, so. Yeah, he was working over there, and he got laid off, and he knew how the SCADA system was over there, and like how those things were managing the inputs. And he just threatened the company that like if they don't pay him something or that kind of thing, and like he was gonna like basically introduce sewage water into the drinking water and like make everybody fall sick or that kind of thing. And of course, there was a slammer worm, ever lovely, which like took down one of the nuclear plants for like 5 hours. And the other thing was like the hacker, in this one is in Russia, where like he like takes control of the gas pipelines. I don't know if anybody was just like 24 over here. I'm like I watched all 5 seasons of it like in like the Christmas break. So like I don't know which season it was, but in one of them like they did think about like introducing the nerve gas into it without being traced. That was basically taking control of the SCADA system indirectly. So you basically could do that too, like take control over there and like take control of the sensors, like not to like send out the values, the readings to you. And once you are done with your thing, and then like when the real thing is going through, like then release it back. So like the server is going to think, well, the sensor just went down for a while or something, that kind of thing, and it's going to like come back. Wow, am I going really fast or something? I get like a little bit carried away sometimes. So these are the SCADA protocols that you can see out there. Like these are just a few of them. The Modbus DNP3. Modbus was like probably one of like the most ancient ones, like probably like the few of the first ones to be developed, and it's still being used a lot all over the places. And Modbus was like mainly developed for like all the utilities. Again, all the utility companies basically use that one. DNP3 is like mainly for water and gas. That's where like they use DNP3 a lot. And so this and ICCP is like used in like all the all the probably all the electricity plays and everything. And UCA is again like UCA and UCA parts of UCA2 architecture, which is like, damn, I forgot the name. I forgot the expansion for it. So UCA again, like it's an architecture basically for like the communication model, and like what it does is like again for like all the electricity and like all those people, they use like different standards, like all the IEC standards, and like part of IEC standards are used in even ICCP too. So and these are again like used for like the electricity and like those generations places, and of course like there are also many other more protocols over there. Now let's get on to like the Modbus protocol. So this is the basic architecture. Like the first 2 bytes is always a transaction ID. So each MTU is going to be like talking to like lots of client IDs. I mean, like actually theoretically they can talk to like 255 of them, but so and each one is going to have a transaction ID with it. So like you can be talking to like the ID 1 with like transaction ID 2 or something, and then like with the client ID 2 with some 100th transaction or that kind of thing. So the first 2 bytes always determines the transaction ID. The next 2 bytes is the protocol identifier, which always has to be 2 nulls. Then the next 2 bytes is the length byte. And the strange thing is like most of the queries all have a length of 6 bytes. So if you want to like in the future, you want to go build up your own stuff. So, yep.
Is this from a kernel or just, does any of the Wireshark support?
Yeah, Wireshark does support these right now. Yeah, currently they do. That's like, I was like pretty shocked like when I saw like, oh wow, this is like awesome. These guys are like crazy cool, that kind of thing. In fact, like the first when I was like actually starting to write my fuzzer, I don't know if you guys have heard about Autodaf, AUTODAFE. That one is basically like what it does is like it takes out like the interpreters from the Wireshark, like those files, and then like it creates a test cases kind of thing, like a generic thing. It doesn't like go through like the details of it. It just like spills out like what are all the things that you can take in, that kind of thing. So that's how I like looked into it first, and then like I thought like I'll write it out based on that particular Autodesk way. Then like I thought like, you know what, like that's not going to give me like so much of feasibility, like so much of extensions that I really want to do that won't be possible in that kind of thing. So I kind of like ended up not to use that. Then the next 2 bytes are the length, and then the unit identifier, which is like basically the client identifier. So you basically can say like client ID with so-and-so is requesting for so-and-so information, that kind of thing. And the next byte is the most important one, which is the function byte, where like it says like perform this particular operation, that kind of thing. And the last one is like the data or the subfunction. Some of the function codes take in like subfunctions too, like all the diagnostic ones, they'll take in like in subfunction code too. And the data basically is being like asking, like supposing it's requesting for particular register value, so it's going to like mention the register number over there in the data portion, this after the subfunction thing. So basically this particular picture is from Wireshark. So, and if you see in there like the 08, 0004, that is basically the 08 is the diagnostic bit which is being set, and then like the 0004 is the forced listen mode. So right now the instruction was sent to force the client into listening mode. So what happens is like when you make someone go into like a listening mode, no matter what the server says, the slave is not going to respond back to you. So when such a case happens, like you basically force the client to go into listen mode, and then you carry out your attack, and then release this one to go back and respond to it. And by the time all your attack is done, and like the server just doesn't even know about it, that kind of thing. And here's some of the function codes, which I took some pain to like put it down so like everybody could use it. So all the function codes and everything. And if you see like the first 1 to 6, they all take the length byte as 6, and they all have like subfunction. They don't have subfunction, but then they have like the 4 bytes of data bytes. The 7th one and hex value 11, and there's one more, which is like a single byte instruction, so they don't take in like any of the subfunction codes. And there are some of them, like the program 484, pole 484, those are all like the proprietary ones. So those you won't find in like a normal implementation, that kind of things. Like they are like only found in like certain implementations. And yeah, like the other things are all again basically explains what it is, what each function code does. So this is again like the subfunction. I mean like the diagnostic mode, where what I was telling you about, like the PCAP that I showed you. So it is like all the 08s and like what are all the subfunction codes for that particular diagnostic mode. So this can like tell you like all the report slave IDs, or like what you want the particular client to do, client or the server to do. And by the way, like all the Modbus protocol can do either way transactions. So like you can force the client to do something, as well as the server can force either way you can enforce things to happen. Because like I told you, like it could be like in the intermediary level too. So like which could be acting as a server for some of the protocols, some of the RTUs might by itself be acting as an RTU to another MTU, that kind of thing. So these are all the other subfunction codes, and these are all 2 bytes basically, all the subfunction codes. It should be 0000, 0001, that kind of thing. Going on to the next protocol, which is the DNP3. Again, like it always starts up with like the first 2 bytes, which is like the sync bytes, which has to be like 05, 64, and then like the length byte. Again, the other thing is like even though like in the Modbus, if you would have seen the length byte is like 2 bytes long, it's technically it can take in only like 250 max characters, 255 minus like the header length. So, but they do have 2 bytes over there. The RFC states it has to have like that kind of thing. So, and in DNP3 they made sure it just takes in like 1 byte as a length byte. So they did enforce a little bit much better architecture into the DNP3 protocol, where like introducing CRCs, and like the CRCs are used in the Modbus, the later versions, where only in the data processing, data transaction, only there the CRCs are used, and like the querying processes, it just nobody cares about it apparently, which is like the most critical ones. Again, over here, like the first byte is the length byte. So again, over here the length can be like maximum of 250, and all the headers minus the headers, that kind of thing. And then we have like the link control, which basically says like if this was like these are all the instructions that you want to follow, that kind of thing. And the next 2 bytes is the destination, and then the source address, 2 bytes each, and the CRC of the entire header. Then comes the data portion, and the data portion is again like split up into further things, which I'll explain it in coming slides. And this is the packet capture of the particular DNP3 thing. And if you see like the command 15, which is like the command basically in this one comes as the 3rd byte in the data portion. Before that, there are like 2 more bytes, which I'll be explaining later. So, which says over here is the disable spontaneous messages. So if you're going to be like querying for some particular things, it's going to like not respond to you. So yeah, the control byte is basically the if you see the control byte over, did I lose it? Oh, the link control. So that one is basically provides all the control information of the function codes. Then the next one is like the layer transport. So transport layer byte. Over here, like the first bit basically says it's like the start of the first packet of the entire. If you are having like, obviously you're going to have like huge chunks of data, so you want to like split it into like smaller chunks and then like send it across. And which says like it's the first packet, or like if the second bit is set, then it's like the final packet, or if both of them are set, it's just 1 packet transaction. And then followed by the next 6 bits, or like the sequence ID. Then the application layer control, which is again like does all the first and the final confirmation and then sequence and all those kind of things. Then the interesting thing about the DNP3 is like it can chunk the data. So all your data is going to be like CRC'd first. And even though your max data is going to be like 250 bytes, it has to be like chunked into like 16 bytes each. And each 16 byte is going to be followed by 2 bytes of CRC. So this was the reason why I couldn't use AutoDAF. And like the chunking purposes for like the first and the final bit setting in, that kind of thing. So, and again, like the CRC of the DNP3 is like completely different from like the regular CRC that we have. So they have their own stuff. And if you want, I can share that code too. It's not a problem. So then like we have like the CRCs being created every 16 bytes. So even though like the length byte will be like just 1 byte value, and you'll say like if it is like 250 or 255 there, it's the actual packet is going to be like 292, probably like 32 bytes of CRC after every 16 bytes of chunk, that kind of thing. These are all again like the internal indication flags about like those control bytes, how it should be, that kind of thing, and that kind of thing. ICCP is the next protocol, but like I'm not going to go in much detail about this one, and because I thought I would be running out of time. And so again, like in ICCP, we established it's like a really layered, highly layered architecture in ICCP, and you can just keep on adding up more and more layers to this one, and it's a really complicated one. So first you establish a connection, the TPKT establishes the connection. Then like the next one is like connection-oriented layer. Then you go on to like the session layers and the presentation layers and all this. Everything, like they have their own like 7-layer architecture over there after like the regular architecture. I did see one kid over there. Probably I thought the kid would be interested. This fuzzer is basically called Sully because the guy with whom I work, Pedram and Cody. So those 2 guys are the one who developed the framework for this one, and they decided to name it Sully because they thought this Sully from Monster Inc. was like really fuzzy and like they wanted it to be like that. So one of the test cases that I've mainly made are for like the protocol anomaly detections, then like all the unauthorized read and write instructions, and then determining of like few of the possible denial of service attacks. And today I'll be just showing you like the 2 cases for like the Modbus and the DNP3 protocols. The main components of the fuzzer are again like the initialized one, and then the blocks, which does all the blocking of, I'm like putting it into like the Sully fuzzer is like based on like blocks. So like you create the test cases of each blocks and then like file it up together and then like send it across, that kind of a thing. So it's like much more better than like the regular fuzzers where like you create the test cases and then like send it out, that kind of thing. So here it's like probably like 100 lines of codes. Like you'll have like probably like 2,000 test cases for this particular protocol, that kind of thing.
Sorry, stupid question. What's a fuzzer?
Okay, sorry, I should explain. A fuzzer is basically what it does is like you are trying to find automated bugs in software, So you have an application. So you want to like send. You normally like are used to sending like legitimate values to it all the time. Supposing like you're like checking out the web or something. You say like www.google.com, and what it does is it's going to put it in get/www.google.com and /http1.1 or whatever that this one, and it's going to send it out. That's like a legitimate request. So what happens if I put in like a case where like get / and probably like 2,000 bytes of random data over there, and then like /http.1. And if there isn't a proper test case over there for checking for values, which is like greater than certain number of bytes, and what happens is like we end up like overflowing that particular buffer and then going into some other portions and overwriting the code and like taking control of the machine basically.
So the fuzzer generates test cases?
Yes, please. So this fuzzer will like create the values which is not supposed to be a legitimate value. So you can create like really weird stuff. Like that was just one example of the get.
And if you think about a fuzzer versus just sitting around data, the fact like HTTP, so you get more and more layers, it makes sure it's valid enough.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get caught at a higher layer, and then it sends a bad data. So
Yeah.
that's the key thing of using these frameworks is it gets you far enough down that you don't get caught by it.
So.
We'll get caught by an application firewall.
Sorry?
We'll get caught by a layer 7 firewall.
Not. Yeah. So here's the thing. Like if you are implemented like a Modbus protocol in your network, so what it's going to do is like it's going to open up the port 502 because that's where it is supposed to communicate, and you will be opening that particular port up. And like what my fuzzer is going to do is like I'm going to send data to that 502 port right now and try to get over that. So. I can do legitimate commands too. What? You mean to say like sending your legitimate commands to that particular port?
No, but that's the only thing. That's what an application firewall would allow.
But then you get to the point where you need an application firewall to understand SCADA, right? Which there are a few.
You need an application firewall that exactly matches the logic of your application. So you have to practically re-implement any parser that you have in your application. Plus the idea of what makes the correct protocol.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't happen.
And you need customized registry.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen.
I will be getting to that kind of an idea basically. The last slide of my presentation will be probably.
My former company actually used to make an application firewall for SCADA.
Wow. Okay. Does it work well? No, I just want to try it against it.
Tipping point, identify it?
Yes, we do. Because like they wouldn't let me come out and present this stuff if we are not covering it first in the first place. Well, yeah. Going on to the next one, the PET RPC is like the one where like it does an RPC interface between like the fuzzing wherever like the client target us and to the place from where we're generating all the test cases and like for all the GUIs and everything. And the general primitives are like what you want to send. Like you want to send in like a static string, or like you want to send in like some random data, or like the bytes, the hex, whatever the things. There are like way too many of them to list over there. And sessions is basically like the where it maintains the session of every single attack that we send out, and then like gets a response back and like sees if it is like right, legit or not. And the next one is like our own exception handler for the Sully framework. Then the agents are basically the network monitoring agent, which what it does is like most of the cases, like especially people like us when we are in like the IPS sector, we want packet capture. We want to see what is on the wire in order to like make something sense out of it. So the cool thing about it, like it's going to like transact every single packet and like put it up over there according to the test cases and save it up there. And like when something bad happens, when something crashes, we just know which particular PCAP to go check it out, rather than going through like a huge dump of like probably like 1,000 PCAPs packets. Sorry? This will be released out on June 13th, I suppose. June 13th or July 13th, one of those 2 days. Pedram is releasing his book on fuzzing, so along with the book, it will be released. And Pedram Amini, Pedram, and yeah, the couple of guys. So, sorry, Pedram, Pedram, Amini, Amini. Sorry?
Is that the publisher?
No, the author. I am not sure. You got that. The framework was built by him, so my test cases will be released with it. So, if you want, I can give you my. Sorry? DNP3, yeah, and probably like I'll be working on the other protocols too in the meantime, and like we'll be. I'll be adding an ICCP for sure, but I'm not sure if I'll be doing the UCA. I'll try to do that one too. And like, ask someone like, you should probably like check it out on openrce.org. So that's probably where you'll find the source code for the fuzzer too, most probably. So that's his website too. So like he'll certainly be along with, and the other plan is to basically to integrate it with PyMe. I don't know if you have used PyMe for reverse engineering. So we'll be like integrating this fuzzer along with PyMe too. Yeah. So yeah, the network monitoring thing will be basically taking out all the PCAPs. The process monitor will be basically like checking out all the processes over there, like if the process got killed or like if there was something, it caused an exception, that kind of thing. And the VM control is like the cool one that we really thought, because like most of the time when you're doing like the test cases, it's like gonna like do it in the VMware image and then like do the crash and all those kind of things. There's one particular thing that happened that we did with Trend Micro when we were like testing it out, and like it just blew it off bad, and like it just crashed it so bad we couldn't get the OS to reload again. So it just wouldn't load up. So we had to go back to the previous snapshot in order to get it up and running, and then go from the next test case onwards, not that one, that kind of thing. It was a major crash on that one. So just because of that particular reason, like he went on to like do this particular module as well, where like you can, after every single test case, you just take a snapshot of this one, and then goes and deletes it, that kind of thing. So if such a severe crash happens, we can just revert back to the previous snapshot and then like load it up. So all those things are done by the VM control. Here's a small snippet of my Modbus protocol, this one, test cases. The first one has to be always initialized with a unique name. The second one is basically the 0001 is like, I'm just keeping the transaction ID as static over here. I'm not fuzzing that particular value because I thought like that itself is like running out to be like really a lot of test cases over there. The next 2 bytes has to be static, which, like I said, it has to be like 2 null bytes, which determines it's a Modbus protocol. Then like the sizer byte, which basically takes the entire size of the data that is going to be following after that and then like puts it up over there. So the sizer block, again, like the cool thing about it is like you can do all the little endian, big endian, and like you can do the fuzzing of that particular thing itself and then like pad up data. So there's a padding instruction too to like pad up to the data too. Then the next one is like, again, like I kept it static, which is like the unit identifier, which mostly like it doesn't matter like which unit you're like trying to hack into, that kind of thing. So the next one is like the most important one, where like we are like fuzzing for every single function byte over there, like all the unique cases and everything. And the last one, the D word, is basically like the 4 bytes of like the function, sub-function code and the data. So that generates a huge, and like if I were to like by default, it doesn't do like the entire that 4 gigs of options, because like it's gonna like run into like years and years and years to finish. So it just does all the boundary condition.
What's your test case rate execution?
Sorry?
How fast do you test execution?
So I'll show you though. You'll see the demo. So yeah, that's why like we because like if you're like doing a 2 byte thing, it's like 65,535 test cases. Not like on an average, say like we do like 10 per second or something. So it's gonna still take 13 years, I suppose, to finish up like the entire 65,000 kind of thing. So that's why like we'll just do the boundary cases. So like we don't want like, unless you want, that's why like the fuzzable is set to false over here. If you really want to do like the entire range, then like you can set it up to true and like do it.
Some of the fuzzers I've seen are parallel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they talk back. And,
This is also parallel.
sure.
So the other thing that you can do, instead of having the D word over there for like the 4 bytes, because like some like I've tried out this one as well as the other case wherein like I set it as like 2 words, short words. So like it's like 2 bytes. Like first since it's all like I told you, it's all going to be like block simulation. So it's going to be like the first 2 bytes. It's going to like get first with like all the different possible sub-function codes, and then like the next 2 bytes are going to be like set as a default zeros or whatever default values, and then like that one will be kept static and then kind of thing. So I kept it as a dword over here because like it didn't matter to me much. And strangely, but this is what I did. I just went in after I finished all this coding. I just went and Googled up for like SCADA software, that kind of thing. The first link I clicked, downloaded the demo version, ran this one, that one crashed. I said like, yeah, baby, that's good, that kind of thing. Here's the DNP3 protocol again. Like again, I have the initial over here. Like in this particular test case, I'm like just doing it as a static one. I'm not doing like the fuzzing of the data. If you want to do the fuzzing of the data, then you just have to like include these two, the ones in that small bubble over there. So again, like the static ones are like the first 2 bytes of the sync bytes, which says that this is the DNP3 protocol. And by the way, DNP3 works on 20,000, port 20,000. So you will have to open up that FMR report with all the firewalls and everything. So then like the byte for like the control bytes and all those things. If you see over here, like after the s_block start data, the first byte over there, which is like the transport layer chunk, which basically checks for like sets it up saying like this is the first packet or the last packet or the middle packet, that kind of thing of the entire transaction. So that thing is implemented in here. So you won't be able to have it in like regular fuzzers or anything, because the only other people who have a fuzzer for DNP3 is like Mu Security or someone, and they don't seem to be telling much about it, and like then they're like charging like super crazy money for it too. So I said like, you know what, I can just build one myself and give it to you for free. And after that, this one transport layer is like the application layer chunks again. Like so, since it's also again like a layered architecture, you have to go through that kind of thing. And next, testing out like the bytes and all this. And CRC checksum for the DNP3 protocol has to be created after every single 16 bytes, and then like after the header value over there. So those things are being calculated over there. I missed something. So this is the thing somebody asked me right here about the firewall, application firewall and everything. So here's a simple case. Like if a client is sending out an instruction to the server saying reboot the system right now, that kind of thing. So that's basically a cold reboot command, which is like the OD over there in the second line highlighted. So which says it's like the reboot command for the DNP3 protocol, and it's just going to reboot. Like your server is going to reboot. Like you keep on sending that one like so many times, it's just keep on going to reboot and reboot and reboot. And you're just not going to have any more data being processed anywhere over there. So sending it once is like kind of like acceptable. Like you can like say, yeah, this is fine. Like probably there was something wrong with the server, so let's reboot it. But what if like you're sending in like a huge bunch of them? Like set it as a, that's what like, I was just thinking about it, and like I just didn't know what to do with this idea, so I just thought I'll put it as a slide over there. If somebody's going out there to build a new IPS device or a new intrusion detection thing, you can just build it up with this kind of an idea. It'd be cool. So now what I do is basically like say like you have a reboot command, check out for that particular set of bytes, and then like see if that is coming from that particular, these many counts within like this short span of time, that kind of thing. You can have like 10 commands within like 5 seconds or like something like that kind of thing. And if it is coming from the same IP, then it's like really fishy over there for you, so that kind of thing. I'll show you the demo. Okay, the port 502 is not opened. I just want to make sure. This is the TCP version of, sorry. this is the TCP version of the Modbus protocol implemented by this particular software company. So I'm just opening up that particular port over here so like the transaction can take place. This is the Modbus test case that I've written. So that's how fast it runs. And like you basically have the service up. It like sends out like the responses too, and the crash where it takes place. So you can see the instruction. Right, I'm sure it's also clear. It's fine. That's good for me.
That's all automated, so the debugger comes up and all that.
Mm-hmm. So like that basically shows you like where exactly. Right over there, it says which particular command it got like screwed over there, that kind of thing. So
That's the debugger in the application, not
it's in the VMware image where the application actually crashed.
right.
So I'm sending out the attack from my machine.
Think of maintaining any kind of health reporting to verify if you don't have access. If you didn't have access to the target machine, there's no way to actually tell the crash other than
Yeah.
it's unresponsive.
Other than like this one just crashing over there, like you won't get any more responses from the victim. That kind of thing. So
Or you could start sending out spoofed messages back
So are you going to add in,
saying that
are
everything's
you
fine.
adding support for like SNC monitoring of the target machine?
that's a bad answer. No, but like
GD does.
Well, there, is there an open API for plugins?
oh yeah, I'm like this. The entire thing is going to be like open source, so like you can just go in and create your own fuzzing test cases over there and put it up over there for your own purpose. So like the framework has been built already, and like this is like just plugins that like the SCADA is what like I volunteered to do for Pedram, and then like I'm like doing all the SCADA stuff for him, and like I'll put it up there. And we have some for like the RPC which has been developed already. So RPC is done, like HTTP has been done already, and the basic stuff's like we're like already putting it out. And when the fuzzer is going to be released, it's going to be all coming out then. But like other than that, like some proprietary protocols or anything that you want to do, you're welcome to do it yourself. And everything is going to be open source, so it's all yours. Have fun. Finally, some of my references that I've used in the paper, all the stuff. And Digital Bond is one of the really cool websites where you can find a lot of information. Previously, they were giving everything for free. Now they charge $100 for it. It's a bummer, but it's pretty good.
Any slides will be posted, or?
Yeah, I can post it up somewhere. So I'll give it. Or I can just give it to the organizers or something, and they can put it up somewhere. So, yeah, special thanks to these two guys who helped build the framework. And any questions? Just one at a time. We'll take it. Any questions?
I was going to say, do you know of any, if they're going to add in support for authentication in future versions?
For DNP, I mean, like for these protocols, or so like, there's some protocols which do have authentication. Like the ICCP one, you have to first establish a connection over there, and like over there the checks are all done. But even there, like there's
TCP replace attacks as well.
yeah. So, but here's the thing. There was one other. I don't know if you guys know about a guy called Matt Franz. He's pretty big in the SCADA world too. And like he's done some stuff over there. So like I was like talking to him, and like we were just generally doing stuff over there. He was in Austin previously before he moved down to Chicago right now. So the thing was, when you send like overlong the TPKT command in like the ICCP, that crashes that particular software. I'm like, they're like these softwares, they just built it up like, like as soon as possible they can just leave the house, that kind of a thing, So you'll find like a lot of vulnerabilities out there. So yeah, if you find some vulnerabilities, report a tipping point. We'll pay you. So yeah, that's about it. So any other questions? Somebody else had a question.
Is there any standard corpus of those SCADA protocols?
I didn't get you in between.
So a while ago, there were a corpora of IP with embedded attacks, right? Just something that people could run and test their IDSs on.
There's something like that for SCADA. I mean, specifically Lincoln Labs and all of that.
To test, if like, probably you will have to set up your own thing. I'm like, it's like not that easy, but it's pretty expensive to. I'm like, if you want to like set up your own SCADA network and everything to.
That's exactly right. And so far, I haven't been able to get the sense of how many different vendors do how many different things.
Okay.
Like if I correct.
So each vendor is doing something different, or nothing at all.
So
yeah.
So if you got a client that's using what you do your research, they'll pay for that.
Well, yeah. But basically, my question is, if you learn something about a particular SCADA network, how applicable is it to others?
Well, the thing is this. Right now, I'm talking over here my talk over here was mainly about the protocol anomaly. So if it's a protocol anomaly, then like it's like that particular software, if it is being used by like 10 other vendors, then it's like 10 other people who have implemented SCADA, then like they're all vulnerable to it. And like I was like pretty shocked. I'm like, first I didn't realize this was a thing. I was generally talking to one of my friends, and like he works for Dell in manufacturing plant. I was just generally telling him that I'm working on SCADA, that kind of thing. He said, "Oh, SCADA, we have a SCADA server now." Like, wow, okay. Would they let me in there by any chance? I just want to test it out. I'm like, this is it.
Some of your questions might have been answered at the SCADA summit that the SANS Institute had in Las Vegas last August, September timeframe. You might want to dig through those presentations and be able to get some of that information.
Yeah, they hold it like thrice in a year or something, right? SANS holds the SCADA summit 3 times in a year. Yeah. So that was it. Thank you.